I'm doing it from here for two reasons. The first is that way I don't have to sit for the whole morning. The second, though, is that I am actually not accustomed to preaching or talking sitting down as much, and so I find it much more lively and easier for me to engage when I'm kind of actually moving around, although maybe not with this microphone. Well, there's been an awful lot going on in the Diocese of New Jersey recently, and so it seemed appropriate for me to use some of our time together during our 240th Diocesan Convention to share some things with you about the state of the diocese. As you know, I became the Bishop of New Jersey on June 24, 2023, upon the resignation, not the retirement, because bishops don't retire, you're always a bishop, but the resignation of Bishop Chip Stokes. Bishop Stokes did admirable work in shepherding the Diocese of New Jersey through the COVID-19 pandemic and in leading our congregations and our people into the post-pandemic season. It was not an easy time. Most, if not all, of our congregations lost beloved members, and their loss is still very much felt today. Church finances have been a challenge, and many of our congregations are now working with fewer people and less money than we had in 2019. How many of you have experienced that? I only see about 20% of the hands. I'm not sure. I think it's been a reality for so many of our churches, though, right? This means less energy for mission and ministry. It means increasing building costs and fewer opportunities to engage in the kind of work that we know strengthens and even grows congregations. Things like evangelism and outreach, service, strong newcomer and fellowship ministries. So we're starting to see congregations making hard and faithful decisions. In the past 10 days, 2 different congregations in different areas of our diocese have let me know that their vestries have decided that it is time to close the churches. 2 congregations in 10 days. That hasn't happened before, but I want to share it with you as part of where we are today. In both instances, the congregations have plans for how the community will remain connected and where they will worship. The issue for both of these churches is not so much money as energy. Maintaining worship takes effort, and when people are no longer as well or as young as they once were, it becomes increasingly difficult. It can even become impossible. These are deeply faithful decisions, and while there is grief and loss at the end of a congregation's life cycle, there is also hopeful and God-given opportunity. We will find new ways to serve and support all our members, even when their original church home is no longer an active Episcopal congregation. The energy, the people, and the resources that are made available to the wider church community through these faithful and hard decisions will continue to grow and to serve God's mission. As the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement, to use a phrase that Presiding Bishop Michael Curry uses, we live in resurrection hope, and we know that new life is possible. But sometimes we need to get through the grief and loss and death of Good Friday before we can see what resurrection looks like. There is no one-size-fits-all model for our congregations today. Some of our churches are struggling, some are growing, and some are very stable. Wherever your congregation may fall on that spectrum, we will do what we can to support you. Our growing congregations are diverse. They are rich in people, if not always in funds, and they sometimes, but not always, represent communities that are newer to New Jersey. There are growing congregations in every convocation of our diocese. I think this is really important because it shows that positive change is possible anywhere, and growth isn't just about being lucky in your location. This diverse growth is a tremendous strength for us all, and all congregations benefit when we have new energy and gifts and ministries across our diocese. I'm talking about growth in numbers here, but there is also growth in ministry, in engagement, in mission. And that type of growth is happening in all types and sizes of churches, and it is something to celebrate. Congregations don't have to be big or to be growing to be vital. Some of our smallest churches have mighty ministries of all different types. How many folks here represent a smaller congregation? Yeah. And how many of you love your church? How many of you think those churches have important ministries happening? Yep. A lot of hands here, right? In some parts of our state, the Episcopal Church, our Episcopal congregations, are the only churches that truly welcome everyone. Sometimes we are the only congregation in a community that engages in anti-racism work. Sometimes we are the only congregation in a community that truly affirms the belovedness of all God's people, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. We're going to do our best to stay in those spaces, not just for ourselves, but for our neighbors who need us. As a diocese, we're large. In terms of the number of active baptized members, we are the 12th largest diocese out of the 110 dioceses of the Episcopal Church. For average Sunday attendance, we are the 14th largest, which means there's probably some work we can do to get some of those active baptized members to be more active on Sundays. And we have the 6th largest number of congregations. This means two things. First, that our congregations might be slightly on the smaller side, as you're dividing slightly fewer people by slightly more congregations. And second, since every diocese with more congregations has more than one bishop to support those congregations, I am the bishop in the whole of the Episcopal Church who is responsible for more congregations than any other single bishop. Whew. It's been a bit of a learning curve this year. It's also no wonder we're 40 visitations behind. Now, COVID was part of that, but we have a very large number and only one bishop. And just as a sort of addendum to that, since yesterday was International Women's Day, I am the woman bishop with the largest diocese. So go New Jersey, right? Y'all are doing, we're in great shape on a lot of these things. It's really wonderful. We have good resources, but we don't have an overabundance. We have been blessed with property, and these properties represent both opportunities and liabilities. Not all of our churches are perfectly maintained. I say slightly as a bit of an understatement. How many of you are aware of issues in your church buildings? You know? Yeah. I know. And that's not the kind of thing that, we're going to do what we can to help you with that. And sometimes even those best maintained properties, we built a lot of churches about 100 or so years ago, and they were built forever. Turns out that forever is about 100 years. So now we're in a situation where we're dealing with the property and the stuff and, foundations that are starting to move in ways they didn't move before. And so we're already seeing the impact of some of the building challenges, and we're going to continue to reckon with them in the years ahead. Beginning in the next few months, I am going to put together a task force to assess each of our congregations and our properties, to give us information about the challenges, about both missional and property challenges, and about our opportunities for mission and ministry. This is going to help us to prepare for the future of each congregation so that we can plan and budget proactively instead of reactively, right? We've spent a lot of time kind of responding to what comes to us in a hurry. Be nice to get a little bit ahead of that and be able to anticipate and respond faithfully to what we see emerging in our country, in our congregations and in our state as well. If you have skills and interest in this area, or if you know of others who might, and I've heard from a couple of folks, especially clergy, are willing to speak up often in this, but I'd be glad to hear from you. I'd love to hear from some lay folks with skills here. It's not just about getting a handle on where the roofs are leaking and whether we might need engineers in places. It's also about the demographics of communities, the changes that are happening in our neighborhoods, the ministries that are emerging, and perhaps even a sense of the ministries that were once beloved that are no longer able to function in the same way. It would just be wonderful to have a bit of an idea of where we are with all of our congregations, okay? So if you have interest in this, or you know of someone who might be good for this work, please be in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you. Our finances are a challenge. We spend a significant proportion of our operating budget on support for vulnerable congregations. We estimate that over the past decade, we have spent approximately $10 million on congregational support. And that means that that money is not producing investment income for use today. This isn't a bad thing. Those funds were there to support the mission of the church, and by the grace of God, they were there when we needed them. But they're not here today. And we're working to be careful stewards of what remains, balancing mission today and hope for tomorrow in our spending and our investments. Given the large size of our diocese, we have a small staff. We actually do. Not only am I the only bishop for this many churches, but we have a smaller than typical diocesan staff. Our staff have not always been outward-facing, focused on the needs and concerns of our churches and our communities. And this is changing, and it needs to change. The diocese exists to support our congregations and leaders, both lay and ordained, in their work, in your work, to equip the people of God for mission and ministry in the world. It's that simple. We exist to support you, to equip your people to do God's work in the world. We are here to serve and support you, and not the other way around. We have some new staff in place, always with the goal of supporting our congregations, our lay and ordained leaders, and the whole people of God. In particular, the Reverend Canon Steve Connor, Steve, you want to stand up, is our new canon to the ordinary. He started a week ago yesterday, so Steve has also had a bit of a wild ride in the past week and a bit, but welcome. Jumping in, I was at House of Bishops, and now I'm back, and here we are at Diocesan Convention. He is working with me on staff and ministry support, on congregational initiatives, real estate, and more. So Canon Connor will be an important resource for our churches, our clergy, and lay leaders, and I look forward to the work that he will do with you. Canon Susanna Cates, stand up, Susanna, if you don't mind, leads our education programs. Thank you. She's working with our School for Ministry and other initiatives across the diocese. And she's worked with Jen Bishop, who has been such a resource and strength in getting our School for Ministry started and initiating the programs we have used to form people for ordination and ministry in the diocese. Canon Cates is prioritizing work to strengthen our formation for those seeking ordination. And we are beginning the work of reopening our ordination process. If you are in discernment, or you have someone who's in discernment and is not yet officially in our process, please do speak to Canon Cates over lunchtime or similar, and she'll help you get connected with that. Through her ministry, we are also now able to offer diocesan classes and programs for everyone. That means that when a congregation is too small to offer a confirmation class, we have resources to help. And there is support for congregational leaders, both lay and ordained, who want help with their church's programs, the educational offerings for any age. Canon Cates has a team there's several other folks who work in formation, including Claire Gutwine, who is our missioner for youth, and also a key person in making things happen with chat monitoring today. Claire, do you want to stand up and wave? Thank you. You might have noticed we've started to get back some of the in-person youth activities, and we're starting to build up some energy around that area again. We also have Ann Delgado, who is here helping as well with registrations, who is our missioner for children's ministries and lifelong Christian formation. Want to stand? And so she's a tremendous resource for helping our congregations that are already working in those areas and supporting the staff of each of your churches who have, or the volunteers who have work to do to support lifelong or children's formation. And finally, as part of our formation team, we have the Reverend Dr. Maria Sanzo, who is our chaplain for vocations. She's hiding behind the pillar. But you might have seen her because she led one of the opening prayers this morning, and she's one of the chaplains for convention today. One of the things I recognized when we were having the conversations about the ordination process was that there was no one who could stand there alongside people who were in discernment with us. It was hard to hold the space of both those making decisions that impact people and also being an advocate and an ally for those who are working with. So having equipped the Reverend Maria Sanzo to step into that space as our chaplain, we now have more support we can provide for those who are discerning and for the congregations that are supporting them. I'm thankful for each of these people and the work that they do. When Bishop Stokes retired or resigned, he was not the only member of his team to depart, and much of the institutional memory of the diocese left with him. It's been a bit of a steep learning curve as we figured out convention. And so I am especially grateful to my executive assistant, Morel White, who is to John Conti, who is our buildings and grounds manager, but also the person who has coordinated breakfast, lunch, and snacks for today. I suspect he's down the hall, but to Canon Richard Reed, who is our archivist and historiographer and is probably hiding somewhere in here. Yeah. And to Pat Hawkins, our benefits coordinator. One of the things about a benefits coordinator is we don't just have really top-notch service for diocesan staff in the area of benefits. She works with all of our congregations to make sure that the tricky details of how things are supposed to work are worked out with both clergy and lay employees. She works as part of the team that does letters of agreement for clergy and a variety of other things that provide support for our churches. All of these folks have jobs already. And as you know, in the past couple of weeks, we've had a bit of turnover at the diocese. And I want to tell you how grateful I am to each of them for stepping up into spaces that were beyond the job description on paper, just to help whenever there was a need. For our convention today, we couldn't have done this without our parliamentarian, who happens to be our chancellor, Canon Paul Ambos, who is busy compiling votes. I think this year might have been a heavier lift than most years for that work, because like yesterday afternoon he said, does anyone have a list of the clergy who have left the diocese? And we said, a list of the clergy? So we were able, by that he kept us on track and we got things back and we're where we should be, but it's in large part because of our chancellor, so thank you. What I really want to talk to you about though today is our finance and administration situation. As many of you know, we have some disarray. We are significantly behind in our audits and have not completed them for 2019, 2020, 2021, or 2022. The only reason we aren't behind for 2023 is it's not due yet. We have not been accurate in our record keeping, our deposits or our disbursements to congregations, and more. I want to emphasize that while we need to restore clarity, there is no sense of any malfeasance. It is simply that we have failed to keep our financial house in order. We have made some changes in staffing because of this, and we are working to reestablish best practices and strengthen our financial and administrative well-being. I am committed to transparency and to honest disclosure. We do not have any sense that we have been the victims of theft or malfeasance. We are not missing money in the sense that it appears to have been taken. But our record keeping has been very inaccurate, and we are still working to get a sense of where things are. Congregations and vestries and clergy who have been part of investments in our diocesan investment trust need not worry. Those funds are separately administered and secure, and our protocols for fund disbursements and withdrawals are carefully and faithfully administered. Okay? If you have investments in the Diocesan Investment Trust, there is no reason for you to be concerned at this time. They're administered through a brokerage in New York, a separate bank account, and all of the protocols and everything around that is secure and as it should be. If you have concerns about this, please be in touch with me directly or with the trustees of the Diocesan Investment Trust. Transparency matters. It matters for our financial well-being because when we do not share what is going on, we risk being poor stewards of what has been entrusted to us. You deserve to know about the financial realities of the Diocese of New Jersey and how we are responding to those realities, how I am responding as your bishop. Clear, timely, and appropriate access to relevant information is critical for a healthy and well-functioning system. I believe the changes now underway represent a significant step towards healthy and transparent governance. There are two things that happen when a system is not transparent. The first is that healthy disclosures feel uncomfortable. Truth-telling of any kind is difficult when we are not accustomed to having challenges named out loud. Our financial and administrative life is one of those areas where we have not always been clear or open, and discussing our difficulties and naming the way those entrusted with a duty of care have fallen short, it may feel awful, like we're pointing fingers or sharing someone's private matters. But when money is involved, transparent disclosure is essential, even when it feels uncomfortable. As Jesus tells us in Mark chapter 4, there is nothing hidden except to be disclosed, nor is anything secret except to come to light. A lack of transparency has another side effect. Groups and individuals are disempowered. When information is not forthcoming, when reports and updates do not arrive or arrive very late, when only a few people control the flow of information, those entrusted with the responsibility for faithful decision-making and leadership cannot exercise their full authority. This is part of what has been going on over the past few years. The trustees have been asked to make decisions about real estate with incomplete or outdated information. Diocesan Council, our treasurer, our Finance and Budget Committee, and I have struggled to get a full grasp of our financial realities. As your bishop, I have found it difficult to enact changes and to implement new vision. Healthy transparency empowers and equips us each to carry out in full our God-given responsibilities. I am committed to empowering those entrusted by this body, the Convention of the Diocese of New Jersey, to exercise their ministries fully and faithfully, with the information and resources needed to make and enact the best decisions possible for our diocese, our congregations, and our people. I'll probably regret that one day, when my brilliant idea runs into roadblocks. And that, my friends, is exactly what's supposed to happen, right? Checks and balances are a good thing. And this sacred ministry, this care of our wonderful diocese, is something we share together. It is not mine, but ours. And I give you my word that we will do this work together, partners in God's holy calling. A couple of practical staff updates. The treasurer and I, by the way, our treasurer is a treasure. Sorry, that sounds all cheesy, but Jonathan Gloucester has been so faithful in his duty and his care and his ministry. When things were challenging last week, he came down and met with the staff, not that the work couldn't have been done by Zoom, but because there's a real value to coming alongside people and being present. He has a wonderful grasp of what we are doing and where we need to be, and he has been just a real ally and support for the diocese in this work. So the treasurer and I, together with several trustees, yes, actually, yeah. Surprise. The treasurer and I, together with several of our trustees, and with the full knowledge and support of the Standing Committee, have reviewed and interviewed candidates to provide us with high-level financial team support. We have selected a person with appropriate qualifications, experience, and skills, and Mr. Darius Shagani begins work in 2 weeks as our temporary financial administrator. So we have a person, I worked with one of the companies that send in management support, and we have someone coming in on the 25th of March to work with our finance and administration team to ensure that we have accurate reports, to restore functional operating systems, and to prepare us to complete those missing audits. He's done this type of work before, and I am confident that he will help to bring order to our financial life and prepare us for what is next. I anticipate that this decision will be budget neutral. We will delay hiring a canon for congregations until our finance and administration situation has been stabilized, and we will use those funds and any other currently unused or underused staff funds to cover the cost of this work. Okay? You may recall that Canon Joan Mason, you want to stand? Yay. Canon Joan Mason, who is the retired rector of Christ Church, Toms River, has been, at one point not that long ago, but earlier in your career, Canon Mason had served as a transition officer in the Diocese of Albany before Albany had the challenges they now have. And so she has been serving as our quarter-time interim transition officer. And it was originally intended that that position would last until Canon Steve arrived, Canon Connor, and then we would be able to move things around there. We're going to keep her on in that role as our transition officer, while Canon Connor then uses his additional time to support congregations and do some work with our trustees and our real estate processes. So I think that's a wonderful solution. We continue with someone who's already been doing great work and has already made connections with so many of our congregations in transition and has experience in the area, freeing up some of our canon to the ordinary's time to do some of the other work that we know is needed as well. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredibly hard work of diocesan staff in this season. There has been a genuine spirit of collaboration, and everyone, especially our finance and administration staff, have stepped up and done wonderful and hard work. I'm especially grateful to our controller, Ms. Tanya Rainey. I don't think she's here. She's hiding. And to our office manager and former controller, Ms. Sarah Page. Both have been incredible examples of dedication and competence, and I give thanks. I know our communications have not been strong. Our website contains outdated information. Ministry information is not updated as requested. And we have not done what we needed to do to remain in full and appropriate contact with you and with the wider diocesan community, or with the world around. We have already started to make some changes in our communication staffing, strategy, and leadership. And I have asked the Reverend Dirk Renken, rector of St. Peter's in Freehold, to work with a small group of clergy and lay leaders with relevant skills and interest to help us to find a new diocesan director of communications. Please stay tuned for more information in the weeks ahead. For now, please know that I hear you, I hear your concerns, and I commit that we will do better with this important work. Part of our call as Christians is to be evangelists, communicators of the good news of Jesus Christ. And to do that, we need good support. After a long few months, it feels like we are beginning to move forward in the right direction. I was asked recently about my vision for the diocese, about how I will lead as your bishop, and how we will move forward together. The first part of my response is simple. My vision is that we remain committed to the gospel of Jesus Christ, to being faithful in mission and ministry, doing God's work in the world, and sharing the good news of Jesus. But before we can do that well, we have to put our house in order. That totally sounded like a Canadian accent, didn't it? We have to put our house in order. And there is work to do in a number of areas. Work to strengthen, to support better practices in finance and administration. Work to strengthen and equip our staff so that they, in turn, can support our congregations and our people. Work to get a handle on all our congregations, including strengths and challenges and unique gifts, and work to assess where we are as a diocese and where God might be calling us to grow. Before we can fully discern, we need to establish a firm foundation. While the recent challenges have been difficult for everyone, the recent changes, we are moving in the right direction. To help us with this work, I have been in conversation with the Reverend Gay Clark Jennings. Some of you may know her as the former president of the House of Deputies of the Episcopal Church. How many of you have heard of her? Okay. Some of you might enjoy signing up for Episcopal News Service. They'll send you updates. But she, as the president of the House of Deputies, she held an incredibly important position for 9 years, managing a lot of the work of the Episcopal Church, the national church, in some important areas. Since her retirement in 2022, she has focused on serving as a consultant with dioceses to help assess strengths and weaknesses. And she does this work with a number of bishops in a number of places in our church. She comes very highly recommended. And what she will do with us is she will help us to get a handle on, kind of our strengths and our opportunities and our challenges, where we are, not to set the direction for what's next, but to help us to build that foundation so that we have the full knowledge and the information we need for us to discern together, for me to discern with you about where the Holy Spirit is calling the Diocese of New Jersey to move and grow in the years ahead. So I'm excited about that work, and I think it will help us to gain some real clarity and help us to prepare as we do this other work of putting our house in order. Our ministry matters. Our people matter. What we do matters. Our congregations are a tremendous force for good in our cities and communities. And there are places where we are being invited to be present in new ways, to engage with newly forming communities. In December, I went to the Church of the Good Shepherd in Rahway, New Jersey, for a celebration with our Haitian siblings and with our new Haitian missioner. Stand up, Father Robin Pierre. I feel almost like I found a congregation. We have a church building that the congregation had been closed, and Father Robin and his ministry had begun work there. And when I turned up in December in this small space, it was standing room only, my friends. It was wonderful to see. In this small church building, it was a vibrant, vibrant worshiping community, worshiping joyfully in Haitian Creole. Wonderful news. In October, I was at St. John's in Elizabeth, where I confirmed 48 people in a single service. And that wasn't including the receptions and other things. That's more than some dioceses confirm in an entire year. That's amazing. Wonderful work in our Hispanic ministries with our Latino siblings. It's incredible the way that the Spirit is at work. Yeah. And in August, I went to St. Peter's Clarksboro, which is one of our small congregations in the far-out Philadelphia suburbs. And they've doubled their membership and attendance in the past couple of years. Wow. There's nothing especially diverse about St. Peter's. It's a lot like many of our traditional white English-speaking congregations. But there is this amazing growth and energy and connection. And the Holy Spirit is right there. The Holy Spirit is right here in the Diocese of New Jersey doing amazing things. These aren't the only stories. They're just some of the things I've seen on formal Sunday visitations. I could tell you about Good Shepherd Berlin, where this congregation, it's the most incredible thing. I was there, I think it might have been October. And what they have is they have an older congregation, like so many of ours, with a newer community emerging, and the older congregation has faithfully and joyfully handed over the leadership to this new and emerging community that aren't quite the same as them. They're not from all the same families that have been there for a while, but they've absolutely partnered together in the work of the gospel. Father Russ, you're still here somewhere? Yeah. It's amazing to see the ways that the Spirit is doing things. And if you think that I can come up with a church a month for the months I've been doing visitations, where there's something incredible happening, I think there are seeds of incredible things in every one of our congregations. Even those congregations facing hard decisions, even those congregations making decisions to close. What that will do for the wider church is free up the energy and the people and the ability to renew our engagement with the God who is already at work in our communities. So these aren't the only stories. They're just a few of the things that I've seen in my formal visitations. And I've only visited a fraction of our 136 congregations. God is continuing to do good things, exciting, life-giving things, right here in the Diocese of New Jersey. And for this, I give thanks. It is a joy to be your bishop, and I am so hopeful about where God is calling us and what we will do together. Thank you for being part of this holy work. Amen. Thank you. You know I love you. I love you. I love the churches. I love the people and the communities we serve. I also just threw 8 solid pages of words at you, and we're still not behind, so I would be glad to answer any questions or respond to any comments you might have.